Here's the 46-day snow total from the European Extended Ensemble. Basically, what you're looking at here is who this model thinks could see snow before Christmas. December is trending cold and snowy for the States, and I want to talk about why that is. So let's get into my December forecast. What we're looking at right here is NOAA's, or the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration's, 3 to 4 week temperature outlook. So we're talking about November 22nd to December 5th. So no, this does not represent all of December, but this type of pattern is expected to continue as we push through December and get closer to Christmas time. Now, obviously, we're not getting a lot of love for the southeast and southern plains, although it's possible we get some of this cool air a little bit farther to the south. And taking a look at the same time frame, November 22nd to December 5th, look at this precipitation forecast. Average to above average moisture for most of the country, except for potentially, again, a slither of the southeast. You guys know what happens when you have above average precipitation and below average temperatures. Your chances for snow go up. There are a lot of different models and maps I could use to show you that December is trending colder and trending snowier for the States, but I'm going to show you the ones that I think are most important to look at. Right here, we're looking at our European Extended Ensemble 500 millibar height anomaly. Why 500 millibar? Well, the 500 millibar level is where our jet stream is, and our jet stream controls the temperatures in the States. When it collapses and dives down, we get much colder. If it holds to the north, we're typically warmer. We're in a zonal flow or a ridging pattern. Now, watch what happens as we push through November. We're actually seeing some higher heights and potentially warmer weather out east, with some troughing out west. We've talked about this mid-November. Towards the end of November, it looks like we may get a little bit of a cold spell out west with a warm up out east, but that looks to change as we push through potentially the last week of November. Here we go into November 29th, and then we're getting into December. Notice this troughing that begins to show up out east. Not only that, notice the higher heights, the ridging that begins to show up around Alaska and Greenland. This is really important if you want snow out east, if you want a white Christmas out east, because if you get ridging up over Alaska, instead of these storm systems, these troughs bringing this cold air diving down into the west, this Alaskan ridge will actually block that pattern and force these storms over the top and then down potentially into the northern plains or upper Midwest, allowing that cold air and potentially stormy weather to sink into the plains and out east. Once the cold air and stormy patterns out there in the east, does it stick around? Does it move out? Well, if we got a Greenland block, it's probably going to stick around for a little bit longer. Typically, when you have a negative NAO, which is what we call it when we have this Greenland blocking, cold air can get trapped out east and you can have an enhanced winter pattern. So with all that being said, first week of December, we see that troughing out east. We see continued Alaskan ridging and Greenland blocking, and this holds, and the pattern holds, and the pattern holds all the way through Christmas. Now, this is an extended ensemble. Are we going to see this exact pattern play out? Probably no, but we're starting to see some agreements with the globals, and if we're going to make an outlook or a monthly forecast, the European model is a great model to do it with. And there are other factors that increase my confidence in this pattern actually setting up. We're going to go over those in a little bit. Here's the Canadian model. This is our expected temperature anomaly for the month of December. You can see pretty cold up there in the Pacific Northwest up through the Northern Rockies, and then for much of us out east potentially, except for the southeast, and obviously the desert southwest, it expects to be a little bit above average. The Canadian, of all our models last year, did actually pretty well with temperature outlooks as we went into winter last year. So will it do that good again this year? We'll see, but it does favor, again, a pretty chilly December for much of us in the States, again, except for the southwest and southeast. I did want to look at our European seasonal anomaly for December, and this just verifies what I showed you before. It does expect overall that Alaskan ridge and Greenland block to be in place for December, with, you can see this troughing attempting to dive out east. Okay, this is going to be a mouthful, but what we're looking at here is our European Extended Ensemble 850 millibar 7-day anomaly. What does that mean? Well, 850 millibars is where a lot of our weather happens. It's right up above our heads. If that's cool, your chances for snow go up. We need to be cool in the upper atmosphere. We need to be cool near the surface. But the 850 millibar, where all of these storms are being formed, cold anomalies specifically in that layer can enhance your snow effects down at the surface. So here we go, pushing into the first week of December, through mid-December, and then through the end of December. Same thing, a stream of cold air out here through the States. Now, what's a bunch of cold air do down in the States if we don't have any moisture to tap into? We saw that NOAA liked above average precipitation for pretty much everyone except for the southeast. Well, here's where our European seasonal thinks the most precipitation could be in December. Look at this out east. We're talking about the Ohio valleys, Tennessee, Mississippi valleys, potentially up through portions of the Great Lake region, New England, and we're still there around average for the mid-Atlantic. And the Northwest is expected to have that above average precipitation too. So you talk about these cold anomalies up in the Northeast and Ohio Valley, and up in the Northwest with NOAA and the European seasonal expecting these above average precipitation anomalies. Put the two together again, the trend is colder and snowier for December. Let's continue. The MJO, or Madden-Julian Oscillation, is another great indicator on what our weather could look like temperature-wise and precipitation-wise moving into December. Now currently we're in a phase 6 of the MJO. As we push into December, we're expected to enter a phase 7 and then eventually a phase 8. This can be pretty significant for cold air and moisture in December. This right here is what temperatures can look like in a phase 8 MJO during December. Notice the cold anomalies for the majority of the states, except for potentially the Northwest up here. But the majority of the US typically does see below average temperatures when we're in that phase of the MJO. And by the way, the confidence this cold air will be here because of the MJO phase 8 is actually much higher when you get out towards the plains and towards the East Coast, especially out towards the Mid-Atlantic and New England. Here's another fun thing we can look at. We are in a very negative PDO. Very negative PDO years can give you enhanced cold and moisture as well across the states, especially when you have warm Atlantic waters and a warm WPO as well to enhance those storm systems. Take a look here. This is almost an historic negative PDO. 2013, 2014, very cold period for the states, negative PDO. 2000, 2001, very cold period for the states, negative PDO. There are a bunch of examples of this. Now, a negative PDO does not mean that you're going to see enhanced moisture and enhanced cold for winter. I believe 2011, 2012, if I'm correct, we had a pretty negative PDO, and it was actually a warmer and drier winter than normal. So there are other factors that have to take place. What helps? A weak La Nina, a phase 8, phase 1 going into December and potentially January. These warmer temperature anomalies we're seeing in portions of the Northern Pacific and the Atlantic. All of these factors together with the negative PDO do point towards that colder trend. Last but not least, we need to take a look at the stratosphere. This is the European model. Watch what happens as we approach the middle of November towards the 3rd and 4th week of November. We start to see some higher heights and some warmth moving its way into the Arctic. What does this do? I've talked about it a bunch. This can disrupt our polar vortex, specifically our stratospheric polar vortex, because we're looking at the stratospheric layer here. As those winds around the Arctic begin to slow, the coldest air on the planet leaks out to the south, begins to rotate around in the lower latitudes. On top of everything we've been looking at, a large stratospheric polar vortex disturbance looks like it's setting up for mid to late November. Now, maybe you say, okay, well, that's mid to late November. Well, with the stratosphere, there's typically a week or two lag where that polar vortex breaks down and then the cold air begins to be displaced, like I said, into the lower latitudes. It doesn't happen right away. It takes a little bit of time. So that's going to be happening as we're entering our coldest phase of the MJO, phase 8. This could really be a recipe for a lot of snow in December. So let me know, are you excited for a potential colder and snowier December, or are you someone who's already like, I'm ready for summer to be back? Personally, I think it's going to be interesting to see how the next 3 to 4 weeks unfold, because I think we're going to have brief periods of warm where you're going to start hearing a lot of chatter online about where's all this cold air we're talking about? Where's all this snowfall everyone's been talking about? But it looks like it's on its way, and especially for people who have been in a snow drought. I'm talking about over in the Carolinas up through portions of the Mid-Atlantic and coastal New England. Watch the potential for an early season nor'easter in December. I do think it's possible with the setup. I appreciate you guys watching this video. If you like this type of content, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. I make posts like this every single morning, and I live stream every morning as well to try and answer all of your weather-related questions. I also have an awesome weather community in my Discord. The Discord link is in the description in every single one of my YouTube videos. Lots of great weather knowledge and live updates in there, and tons of weather enthusiasts. So if you want to become a part of the Climate Crew, don't forget to join that. It is completely free. Again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video, or I'll see you when I hop on live right after I post this morning.